Într-un sat de poveste din vârful Carpaților, în Transilvania, trăiește scriitoarea britanică Arabella McIntyre-Brown. În urmă cu aproape 20 de ani și-a luat acolo o cabană din lemn unde să se poată refugia vara. Până la urmă s-a mutat cu totul. Au trecut de atunci 10 ani. În peisajul superb din satul Măgura, cu pălăriile și eșarfele ei colorate, Arabella este ea însăși un personaj rupt din poveste.
Sound carries for miles, yeah, so you can hear. It depends which way the wind is blowing, but even on a quiet day. I remember sitting on the edge of the house here. It was a September day, really warm and sunny, and still there was no wind at all. And I could hear the children from my neighbour's house, and there were only 2 of them then, and they were very little. Now there are 5. But they were singing some sweet song outside, and it was just charming to hear them. And then across the valley it must have been a record playing, might have been a musician, playing a French accordion. And it was just drifted over. It wasn't noisy. It was just this lovely, quiet, soft sound. And it was with the weather and the sun and the blue sky, and it was just the most charming sound.
It sounds like paradise. What did you think of this place when you first saw it? And how did you come to be here?
I came for a holiday for a week in Zărnești. And one day during the week, we came up here on a căruță. It was in August 2003, and just like you did, you come up, and like the ambassador did, you come up and you go, wow, you know, you can't imagine this is here from outside, because you have a little protective arm of hills, and I've had people from Brasov, lived in Brasov all their lives, no idea this place was here, no idea. They come here and go, oh, what? So anyway, so we came up, and it was just astonishing. You know, the mountain and the marigolds were out, and it was so beautiful. So that's how I first found Măgura, and then I came back in November that year to try and find a house to buy. I rang my friends in Zărnești and said, find me some houses to look at. And I came out in July and looked at a few houses in Zărnești, which nothing was right. I didn't want to buy in Măgura because of the winters. I thought it would be stupid to buy up here because it was a holiday home and it would be a waste, 6 months. Anyway, my friend Dan persuaded me to come up and have a look. He knew there was a house for sale, he wasn't sure where. And I said, I'm not buying one in Măgura. Anyway, we came up, and eventually an old lady we met on the road said, I'll show you the house, and she lived just here. So we parked the car at the top there, and we walked down, and she said, pointed to this house, that's the one. And I mean that, you know, the house is fine, it's nothing exciting. There's nothing wrong with it, but you know, that view and that view and that view and that view was so extraordinary. I thought, if I walk away from this and don't buy it, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. That was it. So I didn't come to Romania. I didn't even come to Transilvania. I came to my little corner.
You found your shire.
My shire, yes. Indeed it is. In fact, I always thought that these slopes would be great for a hobbit house. You could dig a hobbit house into one of these hills very easily. It would have been an awful lot cheaper for me to dig a hobbit house in here rather than do this up. I know this is Transylvania and those are the Carpathian Mountains, and we're at 1,000 meters altitude here. But it felt like Sussex, where I was born and brought up, because it's calcium carbonate. You know, the limestone is the same stuff as chalk, which is the geology underneath the house where I was born. So I've grown up on chalk, eating vegetables grown in chalk and fruits, and you know, so I have chalk running in my veins. So as soon as I landed here and felt the limestone, which is the same chemical stuff, under my feet, it was a very strange feeling. I felt that I'd come home. All the birds and the flowers are pretty much the same. There are no bears and wolves in Sussex anymore, but you know, the majority of the wildflowers and the trees are the same, and the people are very similar, actually, to the people that I grew up around. So it's just instantly at home.
What was your childhood like?
Very rural. For the first 10 years of my life, we lived in a village. It wasn't like this, but it was comparable in that it wasn't even a village. It was a hamlet, which means that we had no shop, no church, no pub, just a string of houses. One tends to remember all the best things about childhood, and I just remember running around in the woods, climbing trees, messing about in the little river, eating apples, climbing the apple tree and eating apples that weren't ripe. My mother would saying, "You'll get an upset stomach." Well, I never did. We had orchards with plums and damsons and apples and walnuts. That's another thing, the walnut trees here, they grow like weeds. And that's just back there and two up there. The same in Sussex. So
there is a lot here to remind you of.
It reminds me very much, and the children have again a similar lifestyle, given there are 60 years difference. But actually I was much freer. You know, I'd disappear from the house, bye, and disappear for the day. So yeah, it was a country lifestyle like this. So it really feels as if I've come full circle. The Carpathians and Transylvania are just two of the most incredibly romantic names in the world. And I suppose Transylvania, because of Bram Stoker and Dracula, has become very famous. When I knew that I was buying a house here, I was telling people about it, and everybody, even little kids, knew one thing about Transylvania. They didn't know that the place was real. A lot of people said, "Is it actually a place?" I said, "Yeah, it's a place." They thought it was just made up. But everybody knew the name Dracula. Everybody. Even little kids, as I say. It's quite extraordinary. But when my visitors come out here from America or from the UK, they wander around with their mouths open for a week because they can't believe how beautiful it is. And they come with the idea it's going to be dark and gothic and lots of pine trees and scary, you know, some atmosphere of gloom and fear. And of course it's exactly the opposite. It's light and bright and sunny and beautiful. Yeah, I mean, the real myths of Transylvania, of course, nobody knows in Britain. Nobody knows about the Strigoi and the Kapkaun and the Zmeu and all those lovely things, and the Yelele, which are amazing fairy stories. Frumos I'm not so excited about, but he had a nice horse, Nasdrovan. But you know, there's so much wonderful folklore here, nothing to do with vampires at all.
casa Arabellei mai locuiesc 3 pisici, salvate de ea: Buster, George și Mouse, și 2 câini, Suzy și Papi.
Oh.
1, 2.
Oh, thank you very much.
Now that, so which one?
Catch bugger. He's shy. Normally, he absolutely loves cameras. And normally, if I touched him on his tummy, he'd roll over. But today, he's been a bit shy.
Casa Arabellei este plină de obiecte aduse din Marea Britanie, mobilă moștenită din familie, cărți vechi și chiar jucării, ca ursul Paddington, terierul Bothy și ursuleții copilăriei, Rupert 1 și Rupert 2. Cea mai nouă carte scrisă de Arabella este tocmai despre Rupert 2, prietenul lui Paddington.
And what is his story? Paddington's friend here.
Well, that's Rupert. Rutu. Poor old Rutu. I know he doesn't look it. He looks brand new, but he's actually 63. He's a year younger than me. And the reason he's so perfect and new is that I've never loved him. Which sounds a terrible thing to say. But it's true. I've always felt very guilty about it. And the reason I've never loved him is because I had a bear when I was born. My aunt knitted me a little bear called Rupert. And I loved it more than anything else ever, any time, beyond compare. My brother remembers that my arm had an extension of Rupert. I mean, I just took him with me everywhere. Holding him by the arm or the leg or whatever, and I'd never go anywhere without Rupert in my hand. But I kept losing him because I was a baby, and you know, bears get lost. And I lost him badly, as it were. You know, despite searches, he was not to be found. And it was my first birthday. My mother said, "Please, Alison," her sister, "please just knit another one for heaven's sake," because I just screamed and screamed and screamed because I hadn't got my Rupert. So she knitted me a second bear, this one. And I put him in the washing machine last year because he was all dusty. So I just shoved him in the washing machine, and then I hung him out on the washing line by his ears. And the people who were here at the time, my friends, saw this and they said, "Oh, that's the saddest thing I've ever seen. You've got to write his story." So I have done, and the book is coming out, I think either this month or next month, about Rutu. It's called Rupert 2. I'm Rupert 2. Rutu. And I'll show you, by contrast, all that is left of my beloved Rupert, the real Rupert, loved to death. That's all that remains, because I just loved him to pieces, literally. It's the saddest thing you've ever seen. So that comes of a serious overdose of love. So it's a big question in the book. Is it better to be loved to pieces, or is it better to be not loved and be still new after 60 years? Oh, there's no right answer or wrong answer. It's just a question.
Casa Arabellei este plină și de amintirile cu sora ei, Ginny, care a fost căsătorită cu exploratorul Sir Ranulph Fiennes, vărul actorilor Joseph și Ralph Fiennes. Ginny a fost o personalitate plină de viață și, la rândul ei, o exploratoare de succes. Împreună cu soțul și terierul Bothy, a călătorit la Polul Nord și Polul Sud și a stabilit recorduri.
He parachuted onto the Jostedal Glacier and came down it with a group. Then he
You had incredible courage.
I'll give you a link to a film called Explorer, which has just come out, and it's the story of his life and Ginny.
Okay,
and so.
I would like to see that, yes.
I mean, you should see it anyway, just because they're an extraordinary couple, but it's good background. But she organised, she said, well, I tell you what, let's go round the world. And he said, that's been done. She said, no, along the Greenwich Meridian, over the 0 degrees long latitude.
Mm-hmm. That has not
longitude.
been done.
Never been done, because you'd have to go south and north poles. And she said, by land, no air travel, none. On the surface of the world, never been done before. And he said, yeah, because it's not impossible. And she said, no, it's possible, we'll do it. And she had a little tiny school globe, you know, from school days, little globe like this. And she had a red felt tip pen, and she drew the route from London, from Greenwich, down to the South Pole and back up to the North Pole. And that globe is now in the Royal Maritime Museum in London. And they did it. It took them 3 years. Prince Charles was the patron.
Înainte să fie scriitoare, Arabella a lucrat ca jurnalist. Pasiunea pentru artă a împins-o și spre teatru, unde a fost costumier. A cunoscut mai mulți actori celebri și păstrează în colecția ei, cu multă grijă, scrisorile primite de la Sir Anthony Hopkins și Sir Laurence Olivier.
It's a remarkably open letter. I mean, you know, very personal to him, I think. I mean, as a 15-year-old, I was absolutely overwhelmed. Thank you, dear Arabella, thank you for your kind letter. I'm pleased you enjoy War and Peace. I was very pleased about the award, though I felt very nervous collecting it. I loved playing Pierre. The part was so brilliantly written by Tolstoy. What a relief to be given the chance to talk about life instead of despair and darkness. Tolstoy was an incredible man. I felt, in answer to your questions, I feel more and more tolerant of intolerance, or at least I'm trying to, as a result of playing Pierre. I wish people's solutions to problems weren't planting bombs or using machine guns. That has been the problem for centuries. Nevertheless, I feel that our newest generations, and particularly in my surroundings as an actor, we have become too hard and too cynical, probably as a defense mechanism. We are so ready to make easy judgments. I'm pleased you enjoy War and Peace. I hope my letter doesn't sound sanctimonious. Yours sincerely, Anthony Hopkins. I received this photo from the BBC. Thought perhaps you'd like to have it. That's the photograph there. I mean, he was, I don't know how old he was then. 1973, how old would he have been?
30-something.
Yeah, I suppose he's in his 80s now, isn't he? I just think it's the most charming, open-hearted letter from somebody who was in the process of becoming famous to a complete, utter stranger, you know, daft, naive 15-year-old who wrote some gushing letter to him about Pierre. I just think it's lovely, and I've treasured it all my life.
Do you also have a letter from Laurence Olivier?
Yeah, well, yes, but that was he was just turning me down for a job. There it is. I was looking for a job because 1978, yeah, the production of Dracula that I was working on closed suddenly. So I was casting around for work. So I wrote to every theatre management company in the directory in London, and this letter came back to me with Laurence Olivier's with his letterhead, saying, "Thank you for your two letters. I must have nagged him." Of 21st September and 10th of October. I apologise for the delay in replying to you, but I've been out of the country from the middle of August making a film. I'm so sorry to disappoint you, but I am afraid I'm not in a position to do anything to help you. I'm no longer as concerned with any theatre management, and therefore I'm not able to hire anyone for that purpose. I'm so sorry. Yours sincerely, Laurence Olivier.
în urmă, din casa ei din Măgura, Arabella însăși este uimită de drumul neașteptat pe care l-a parcurs în viață, plin de aventuri și de personaje memorabile.
Thank you, Arabella, for this interview.
You're welcome.
You've had an amazing life.
I have. I've been really, really lucky.